Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and for the final time this semester, we welcome you into the only sports talk show that really matters right here on IUP. It's the big hit, the Christmas edition. If you want to talk about this show on social media, use the hashtag Christmas edition. We've got a lot of sports to discuss today, as always. We're going to focus in the world of the professional sports here today, starting in the senior circuit of Major League Baseball, discussing the Pittsburgh Pirates off-season moves, and looking at who the most intriguing free agent is moving forward on the free agent market. Should be a lot of fun there. And then we'll go into the National Football League, recap the underwhelming slate of Thanksgiving games, and ask who the NFL MVP should be to this point in the season. Then it's our National Basketball Association segment as we crash the boards. We'll say goodbye to one of our own as John Williams has his final show here on The Big Hit. And then we will update the injury scene in the NBA. And then we will debut a new segment here. It's the Pro Sports Showdown as Mike Gosnell, Vaughn Dalzell, Dimitri George, and Kyle Kondor, the big guys, will discuss everything related to their sport. Should be a lot of fun there as well. And then we'll close out the 2-minute drill with a very special Christmas edition, ladies and gentlemen. It's The Big Hit on your television right now. And welcome into The Big Hit, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to talk some sports here. We're going to turn on the hot stove in the world of Major League Baseball with a very festive crew, Chris Hayes and Vincent Lowry. Guys, let's go ahead and just jump right in. Not a lot of time in this final show of the year. Let's go ahead and start with the Pittsburgh Pirates. A lot of free agent moves for them, losing Russell Martin going to Toronto, but they traded for Francisco Cervelli to kind of make up for that move, and they also reacquired A.J. Burnett through free agency. Couple of other moves. They designate Ike Davis for assignment, trade him to the Athletics, and same with Gabby Sanchez. But let's evaluate this offseason so far. What do you think they need to do, or will they do anything before the 2015 season? Chris, we'll start with you.
Well, honestly, Josh, I don't think this Pirates offseason has made much sense to me, but it's kind of typical of what they usually do. They let go of some guys. They let go of Ike Davis, Gabby Sanchez, like you said. They're starting first baseman last year in that platoon. So they're stuck with Alvarez now and maybe Tony Sanchez, possibly. They also acquired Sean Rodriguez, that utility man from the Rays. They got A.J. Burnett back, which might seem good to fans, but you're not really sure how he's going to be this year. I mean, he's getting up there. He's in his late 30s. So not sure what they're really thinking for a long term. They lost Russell Martin, too. I think they really miss his leadership. So I think they need to get a first baseman besides Alvarez. Alvarez just hasn't really shown much. They should get a right fielder, too. They have Travis Snyder, maybe Tabata, too, but they need some guys to solidify that lineup.
I definitely agree with you, Chris. First, actually filling Martin's shoes, period, is just going to be a tough process, just overall for any players. But reacquiring Burnett was a smart move just by showing like a veteran figure on the Pirates team. I do know what you're saying. Like, he is getting up there, and he does. He's getting old, and he does maybe need to retire. But I think what they do need to do is acquire perhaps one more strong pitcher, one elite pitcher, and I think there will be a move in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Starting pitching, of course, of the utmost concern for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And that money that they could have put towards Russell Martin, maybe they can allocate that and work that some other way. But let's go ahead and move into the American League and discuss the Boston Red Sox, a team that made a really big splash in the free agent market. In the span of about 2 days, they acquired two really big names in Hanley Ramirez and Pablo Sandoval. Will these acquisitions make the Red Sox an elite team again, because they struggled last year?
Well, they'll have an elite offense, certainly. They'll have Hanley Ramirez, Pablo Sandoval, like you said. They also have Alan Craig and a lot of other good guys, Shane Victorino in the outfield. But their pitching isn't really strong right now. They have Clay Buchholz and Joe Kelly. Those are two good MLB starting pitchers. But besides that, they don't have much else. I think to be a World Series contender again like they were in 2013, they need to have more starting pitching, and that's where it kind of starts and ends with pitching in Major League Baseball.
I agree with you, Chris. And they do have a very strong offense strategy now with the two new pickups. And what they do need now is hopefully a stronger pitcher, like how you said, and hopefully to bring back some veterans such as maybe Cole Hamels or maybe John Lester.
Yeah, Red Sox also struggling kind of behind the plate at the catcher position. Reminds you of a couple years ago with the Carl Crawford and Adrian Gonzalez days for the Boston Red Sox. See if it works out for them. But can't talk about the Red Sox without talking about the New York Yankees. So let's talk about them right now because they've been relatively quiet, especially compared to what they've done in the past. Typically big spenders in the free agent market. Is this just the calm before the storm, or are the Yankees finally changing their ways a little bit here?
I think they kind of are changing their ways. I mean, it takes two teams to make a trade or a free agent signing. The Yankees haven't made much recently. They got Ellsbury last year. I don't know who they're going to get this year. It could be Max Scherzer, but I'll talk about that later. They need pitching. They need offense. They need a lot of things. They didn't make the playoffs last year. I'm not sure if players really want to sign with the Yankees, honestly, anymore. It seems like they're more interested in signing with like the LA teams, the Dodgers, the Angels, or even the Red Sox. So I'm not sure the Yankees are what they really used to be, Vincent.
Exactly, Chris. They definitely are changing their ways as in free agency. Like how you said, they're very quiet now, and I'm sure like they were not expecting the season they were last year. For example, Derek Jeter just left last year, and they need to fill those shoes. And just by not having those shoes filled right now, his veteran status is up for grabs, and it needs to be taken quickly, or the Yankees will be a turn for the worst.
Yeah, the New York Yankees with certainly a few holes to fill. And maybe this next question can help them out a little bit because I want to know who the most intriguing free agent left on the market out of anybody is, and where do you think that particular player will land eventually? Well,
to me, it's Max Scherzer, formerly of the Tigers. He's a free agent now, like you said. I think he's the most interesting free agent because he won the 2013 AL Cy Young. He had dominant stats. His whole career, really, he's had good stats. 91 wins in his career, a 3.58 ERA, a 6.7 wins above replacement in 2013. He won the Cy Young, like I said. I think he might go to the Cubs. The Cubs are looking to really bolster that rotation and be a contender. He could go to the Yankees. I think those are the two possibilities for him to go.
My picked most interesting free agent would have to be John Lester. He said while he signed with the Athletics, he also said that he would still like to work something out with the Red Sox in the offseason. And also Boston, I feel like, is also his home where he truly belongs. And he also is going to take into consideration for his family and where his family would fit best. And also, he has been receiving offers from the Cubs, but I believe that John Lester will return to the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and close this segment out looking at the big picture once again. Other than the teams we've talked about, which teams do you feel that need to start making some moves in the free agent wire?
Well, there are three teams in my mind. Two of them were in the World Series, the Giants and the Royals. The Giants lost Sandoval, the Royals lost James Shields, and then there's also the Baltimore Orioles. They lost Nelson Cruz to the Mariners. I think those three teams need to get some help because, honestly, if they don't get some free agent signings or go get a guy through a trade or something, I don't think they'll return to the playoffs.
Agree with you. All three of those teams, Chris, and also one more team, possibly be the Phillies, on securing Jimmy Rollins as their shortstop. I know that his contract does have one more year. However, he has recently been in contact with the Yankees and the Dodgers, mainly the Dodgers, about possibly waiving his trading clauses, although I do not believe that will happen. But the Phillies will definitely need to secure him for his stolen bases of 28 stolen bases and 78 runs, both ranked third amongst MLB shortstops, and I believe the Phillies greatly need his help.
Yeah, absolutely. The MLB hot stove is as warm as ever, ladies and gentlemen, and we want to thank Chris Hayes and Vincent Lowry jingling all the way here in our call to the bullpen. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because our Christmas edition rolls on as we hit the gridiron and talk some NFL. We'll be right back.
Success. We see it every day. Hundreds of majors and programs, bachelor's degrees to PhDs, small classes, internationally known faculty who are committed to your success. Real-world experiences to guide you on your career and life path. An alumni network 120,000 strong. I'm IUP President Mike Driscoll. Visit us. Find your success at Indiana University of Pennsylvania.
And welcome back into the Big Hit, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to talk some National Football League in our Red Zone recap, taking the gridiron here with Dakota London and Sarah Moltz. Guys, Thanksgiving just a few days away. Glad to see that nobody's in a food coma. Now we shift our focus to Christmas, and we shift our focus to the NFL as well. Discussing the Thanksgiving games, a bit of an underwhelming slate of games. The Lions, Eagles, and Seahawks all did win those divisional matchups on Thursday with relative ease, I might add. Which one of those teams impressed you the most, Dakota?
Well, is there a way to say all of them? They all were pretty good. Let's just go down the line. Detroit responds very well after a tough loss to New England against the Bears. And if you're a Detroit Lions fan, your biggest concern was their offense. They were struggling to score points. They hadn't scored a touchdown in 2 straight games. They come out against the Bears, and exactly what you need to happen happens. You have Matt Stafford, he completes 75% of his passes, and then Megatron looks extremely healthy. He looks like he's good to go. Then you go to the Eagles and Dallas game, and for that game, that was a straight whooping, and I think that surprised everybody. Philly came out and absolutely owned that game. They did whatever they want on offense. Mark Sanchez did a good job of commanding the offense, and then on top of that, they ran the ball exceptionally well. I think theirs is probably the most impressive considering the fact that they beat Dallas in Dallas. And if you think about it, what that win does on playoff seeding, because with Philly going up 1 game and Dallas moving down, and with the number 1 seed kind of up for grabs, that game is very important. And then Seattle is starting to play like the team that won the Super Bowl last year, as they let up only 164 total yards of offense to San Francisco. So they're looking like they're getting in the groove of things, and they're just as dangerous as well. But I would have to say probably the Philly is the most impressive, but at the end of the day, they all played very, very well.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that all 3 games were perfect games to watch on Thanksgiving. But if I had to choose, I'd definitely go with the Seattle game. I think that the Seattle Seahawks really showed that they are really as good as they were in the Super Bowl. Their defense was fantastic. They shot Kaepernick down. He didn't even have a chance to really do anything. Richard Sherman did what he does best. He had 2 interceptions against Kaepernick, and he just really, the defense and all just really impressed me. So out of all 3, I definitely think the Seattle game was definitely the best for me.
Yeah, and moving ahead to the games on Sunday, there were a lot of good matchups, and one pretty close to home here with the Pittsburgh Steelers and New Orleans Saints playing from Heinz Field, a highly anticipated matchup for sure. The Steelers losing 35-32, last-ditch comeback effort, falling short for the Steelers. They're now on the outside of the playoff race, looking in 9th place in the AFC. 4 games left. What are your chances that they can make the playoffs in a very competitive and up-in-the-air AFC North?
Well, I honestly don't think that they get into the playoffs. The one thing they do have going is that it is somewhat in their hands, because they played the Bengals twice and played Kansas City. Both teams are ahead of them. But if they lose to the Bengals or Kansas City, I think their chances are pretty much done. The AFC is just simply too tight. If they don't win that division, they're probably not going to get in.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't really see the Steelers going far or making the playoffs at all. Like you said, we have to play Cincinnati and then Atlanta and then Kansas City, and I just don't see that happening at all. I think if they do at least beat Cincinnati, there might be some hope for the Steelers, but the Steelers have just not been playing as well as they used to, especially not this year. Their defense, their secondary has just been so weak and so poor, and I don't think that's going to lead them to the playoffs at all.
Yeah, and as you both alluded to, 2 games against Cincinnati certainly will loom large. Pretty tough schedule for the Steelers also. All 4 games against 4 quality opponents. Not a really good position for the Steelers right now, but let's go ahead and talk about a team that is not in a good position either. The Cleveland Browns, still a winning record in the AFC North, but they lost 26-10 to the Buffalo Bills on Sunday, and Brian Hoyer was benched for the first time this season in favor of Johnny Manziel. What are your thoughts on this situation? Because you have Brian Hoyer saying this is his team, he's ready to lead it, and Johnny Manziel says he's ready to take the reins, no pun intended, when it's time.
Well, this has been a roller coaster from the season start, and the Browns have pretty much made it evident that they knew Manziel was eventually going to be the future of the team. And Hoyer had a lot of success early, but he did start to show some flaws. And I just feel like that the pressure of knowing that Manziel was right behind him started to get to him a little bit. And now that they made the change, it's kind of hard to go back. You kind of have to just go with it now. If you really believe that Manziel is the future of this team, then once you make the change, you have to go with it. In all seriousness, Hoyer was struggling quite a bit in their last 2 games. So Manziel came in, he provided a spark, but it still wasn't enough to win. But it does give the team energy, and I know a lot of people are looking forward to that Manziel and Josh Gordon connection.
No, I think the decision was actually really poor. I don't really think that that was smart on their part. I think Hoyer was actually doing a pretty good job for the Bengals. They have been doing exceptionally well. I mean, all quarterbacks have bad games. You know, you're going to have those bad games once in a while. We're not up to par as you used to be, but I don't think that just because he had that one game or a couple bad games maybe, that doesn't mean he doesn't have the chance to not, continue to be their quarterback. Just like I said, I think the decision was poor. Manziel is just, I don't know, he's just not the quarterback that needs to be with that team. Brian Hoyer has been carrying the team for a while. He, like you said, he has a team on their back. I think that they've been doing really well with them. They've been winning, all their games. I don't think that decision was very smart on their part.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Josh Gordon coming back, it should help the quarterback as well. But their very talented tight end Jordan Cameron should be back soon. Cleveland Browns still in position for the playoffs. You have to think a team would rather ride with a veteran quarterback, somebody who's been there, than a rookie, but that remains to be seen. We'll see how that plays out in Cleveland, but let's go ahead and we save the best for last because we're going to talk about the most highly anticipated game of the week, a potential Super Bowl preview this Sunday at Lambeau Field. The Green Bay Packers and New England Patriots. Green Bay coming out victorious 26-21 in a tremendous showdown. Can we expect this rematch to take place February in Arizona?
I think it's extremely likely. Probably because, for one, I think both teams will have the #1 seed, and I don't believe either of them can be beaten at home. We've seen how hard Green Bay has played at home. We see how good New England has played at home in Foxborough. Now, it'll be interesting to see because now the Broncos and New England are both tied for first place, and the Lions are on the heels of the Packers. So if one of those teams lose the #1 seed, maybe there's a chance that they might be knocked off, but I believe if they both stick with the #1 seed, that'll probably be the Super Bowl matchup.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do think that the Packers and Patriots will definitely be in the Super Bowl together. I mean, like you said, we still have the Broncos, we still have the Lions, we still have the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know. It's going to be tough, but I definitely do see them again. I love the Packers, so I definitely want to see them in the Super Bowl. But they're just unstoppable right now, And no one's going to beat Green Bay at home against Aaron Rodgers. And the game was fantastic in general. It kept me on my toes. I would love to see that in the game in the Super Bowl. I think it would be very fun and exciting to see them both play.
Yeah, the bad man Aaron Rodgers does it again, gets the better of Tom Brady in the first career meeting between the two quarterbacks. But let's go ahead and expand it to the big picture here as we did last segment as well. If the season ended today, guys, who would you have as the NFL MVP?
Oh, it certainly would be Aaron Rodgers. He has 3,300 yards, 32 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. That's fantastic numbers. And on top of everything, they've been winning. When you're winning and you're putting up numbers like that, and they've looked absolutely unstoppable at home. And if they win the division and he continues to have the season he's having, I don't even think it's close. Maybe the only person who may be remotely in the conversation is J.J. Watt. But besides that, I think Aaron Rodgers runs away with this one.
Yeah, I completely agree with you both with those two. I think that J.J. Watt and Aaron Rodgers are going to be the top two, if anything. But Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to have the better half of that. Like you said, 32 touchdowns. He has 20 touchdowns and 0 interceptions at home, which is fantastic. You can't really get anything better than what he's doing. He's just been amazing. There's no words to describe him. He's just connecting with the team. You just couldn't ask anything better than Aaron. But J.J. Watt's also doing amazing too. He's been carrying the Houston Texans, and I think that's a very important part that we shouldn't forget about that either. J.J. Watt has helped the Texans triple their wins since 2013, and I think that's also something we should keep in count too. So both those two players are extremely fantastic, and I'm excited to see which one will win MVP.
Yeah, you have to think that's the tier there, Rodgers, Watt, and then it drops off considerably. But that's all the time we have here in the Red Zone Recap NFL edition for Dakota London and Sarah Moltz. We're going to toss another log on the fire and then hit the hardwood and talk some National Basketball Association right here on The Big Hit. Stay tuned.
Today I'm going to talk about Patty. Patty's best characteristics, she's stupid. Stupid and ugly. Everything she does is ugly. Watch her eat. Watch her stuff her face. Look at her. Greasy hair, dirty fingernails. It makes me want to vomit. Get a life, Patty. Thank you.
And welcome back into the Big Hit, ladies and gentlemen. Time to talk some association here in our Crashing the Board segment. Joining us, a good crop of analysts. For the final time, John Williams on set, and Freddie Mitchell joins us as well. Guys, let's go ahead and just jump right in, talking north of the border, the Toronto Raptors, top team in the Eastern Conference standings right now. But they've lost DeMar DeRozan out indefinitely with a torn left adductor longus tendon injury there. That's certainly a mouthful, and it probably is going to impact the Raptors quite a bit, I would imagine, their leading scorer. Do you think they will lose their first place spot in the Eastern Conference? And if so, who is going to take it from them?
Yeah, it sucks to lose DeMar DeRozan. I believe that who did I pick? Yeah, I picked the Wizards. I picked the Wizards to take the spot. DeMar DeRozan averaged 19 points per game. You're going to need Kyle Lowry to step up. Like the Wizards, at least 5 players are averaging 10 points or more, and they're like sixth ranked in defense. So, I mean, that's a big team that's on the rise right now. So,
yeah, I think this is a big blow for the Raptors, but they still have people like Kyle Lowry and Terrence Ross, but other players like Tyler Hansbrough from UNC and Chuck Hayes really need to step their game up now to cover that loss. But I definitely think Toronto will fall a few spots in the East. The Bulls are right on their heels. Like you said, the Wizards are not behind. So there's other teams that are right there that are only a game and a half behind. They're definitely going to come up for that number 1 spot. But Toronto will still be a contender in the East for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And switching over to the Western Conference side of things, the Memphis Grizzlies, a team finished 7th last year, are in first place this year, a 15-2 overall record, a tremendous record for the Grizzlies, 8-0 at home also. What has been the key to their hot start this year?
love. They're sharing the ball. They're showing each other love, you know. As long as you give love, the ball passing is all about assists. It's like they all know their roles. Everyone knows their roles. Zach Randolph is crashing the boards. Paul Gasol is scoring points. And Mike Lowry is distributing. I mean, I think that's what matters the most. And what? Randolph's averaging a double-double. So, I mean, everyone doesn't try to step on each other's toes. And as long as everyone knows where they're going, know what they're doing, I can see them going to at least to the Western Championships.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this team just has great chemistry. The core of this team has been playing together for a while. Gasol's been there. Randolph has been there. Tony Allen's been there for a minute. Like you said, Randolph's averaging a double-double. Paul Gasol is averaging 20 points a game. Conley's averaging 16.3. So, you know, if they keep on scoring, like I said earlier, they kind of remind me of the Spurs, the way they play together.
Yeah.
Like you said, they each have their own little role, their own little piece of the puzzle, and they all come together. And no one's trying to be greedy or arrogant. And that's why they're playing really good basketball right now. I was looking up team stats for Memphis. They're not really top 5 in any major category. So they're just playing consistent basketball, good team chemistry, and just believing into the system that they're in.
Yeah, the Memphis Grizzlies, the quintessential definition of a team, solid in all respects. It's hard to think that they're going to keep that 15-2 pace up for the length of the season. That would be quite a historic run if they were able to do so. But let's go ahead and talk about the injury-ridden Oklahoma City Thunder, a team that many predicted to win the West this year. Currently the 3rd worst record in the Western Conference. In fact, 5-12 on the season for them. Russell Westbrook has returned, and he's given them quite a spark since his comeback, and they are getting ready for the return of KD, Kevin Durant, as well. Where can we expect this team to end up with their firepower starting to return?
Well, Kevin Durant's back now. He's playing right now as we speak. I believe they can at least get to the 7th or 8th seed, as long as the rest of the guys that are there, they're actually solid players. You got Jeremy Lamb, Ibaka, the kid from Pitt, Sam Adams. I feel like they can sneak their way in there. I feel like Phoenix was going to slip up like sooner or later, but with Westbrook return, Durant is getting move smooth at things in the groove of things. Sorry, I see them coming back. Just got to hold off. Just got to win about. They can do it.
The future is bright for the Thunder. I mean, if you look at the schedule, the next 8 games they have a pretty weak schedule. They play the Pelicans, the 76ers, the Pistons, the Bucks, the Cavs. Those are 2 benchmark games they'll have there in between. They play, and then who do they have? The Timberwolves, the Suns, and the Kings. So I could easily see them going 6-2 in their next 8 games. That puts them 3 games under 500, still 11-14. But they could easily come up and get that 7th seed. I don't think the Suns will stay there for that long.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Plus, they also play in one of the weakest divisions with the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, and the Jazz. Yeah. So if you're playing all those teams, that's 4 games each right there. Those are some wins that are going to come around.
Yeah, and with the returning Westbrook and Durant as well, you have to think they are putting themselves in a good position. And let's go ahead and move into the discussion of the NBA MVP, because it's a very interesting dynamic, guys. LeBron James not playing as well as many had anticipated. Kevin Durant out with an injury as well. So the top 2 leading candidates going into the season not performing up to snuff right now. So who is your NBA MVP if the season ended today? We'll start with you, John.
I'm going to say Steph Curry with the shot, boy. That's what I think. He's averaging almost 24 points per game and 7.8 points per assist. He's making his teammates better. There's what's his name? Bogut playing better now. Harrison Barnes, Maurice Spades. I think they're doing really well. They're second in the West right now. So I mean, with Steph Curry, he's on fire. He can't miss. He's averaging 3 threes per game. So I mean, you gotta go with Steph Curry.
Steph Curry with the sauce, boy. Almost 42% behind the line, like you said, 24 points per game. He's honestly the definition of MVP because, like you said, he takes that team to another level. Without Steph Curry on that team, the Warriors would be a sub-500 team, I think, personally. Because he's scoring, like you said, he's scoring points, but then he's also taking efficient shots and he's getting his teammates the ball. Another key person to look out for is Anthony Davis. The thing about Davis is for him to get votes for MVP, his team needs to turn that season around and get in the playoffs because I think only 3 people have won MVP before on a team that has not made it to the playoffs. But he's putting up the numbers for MVP potential too.
Yeah, and that's certainly very interesting as well. Steph Curry looking like he has it on lock as of now, but that's all the time we have here for this. But we are not done in this particular segment because we want to pay a very special tribute to John Williams, graduating his last show here today. John, I just want to kind of ask you right now, what are your takeaways from joining the Big Hits here?
I'm going to say, like, the people I've met. I believe that I created a lot of good friendships here. Great opportunity to hone my skills behind the camera, in front of the camera, and it's just been a great experience. And I appreciate everyone here for doing these things with me, helping me, giving me tips and advice when I first started. It's a wonderful thing. I love this. I love this show, and I love IUP.
Yeah, and I think I speak for everybody as well. We appreciate all of your hard work. But what does the future hold for you?
I'm moving to California. Next year I'll be moving to California. I'm getting into acting, so I'm ready to go. I got a cousin that's doing a Levi jeans commercial, so he's doing a lot of things in Pasadena, and I'm just trying to get my foot in the door as well. So I'm ready. So you're going to see me again.
Yeah, we certainly know the future very bright for you, John.
Thank you,
the future very bright here on the Big Hit as well. For the final time, John Williams and Freddie Mitchell, I'm Josh Hill. We're going to send it to the Pro Sports Showdown after the break as our Christmas edition rolls on. Thanks, everybody, for a great semester.
It's hard to explain. It just became home. There are hundreds of majors and programs, bachelor's degrees to PhDs, small classes and faculty that really get to know you. Amazing internships and everywhere, programs that help to find a job that is right for you. It's what IUP is about, a commitment to your success. See it for yourself. Visit us, Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Find your success.
Welcome back to the Big Hit. We've got a new segment here for you. It's the Pro Sports Showdown. I'll be your host for this segment, Kyle Kondor, and alongside me, I got 3 other analysts that are going to be discussing each one of the 4 major sports. I'll be discussing the MLB, while my man Vaughn Dalzell to my left will be discussing the NBA. Mike Gosnell will be discussing the National Hockey League, and Dimitri George will be discussing the National Football League. Guys, I've got a good spot to begin here, and this one will go to you, Vaughn. The Philadelphia 76ers are now 0-17 to begin the NBA season. They are 1 loss away from tying the 2009 New Jersey Nets for the worst start in NBA history. With that being said, I think it's pretty easy to say the Sixers are tanking this year. Do you think tanking is a good idea in the NBA, Vaughn?
I do not, actually. I think that it's smart for the teams, but I don't think it's good for the sport. Overall, whenever you talk about what teams are drafting where, you always know who's going to be number 1. When LeBron came out, he was going to be 1. Andrew Wiggins is going to be 1 this year. Dwight Howard was going to be 1 when he came out. You know who's who. It's not like other sports. that you say it depends on where people are getting drafted, who's getting drafted by who. So I don't think it's very good for the sport, but it's smart for teams, especially Philadelphia 76ers, because in a couple of years they'll have a stacked roster with a lot of young players.
Right, especially with that lottery. You don't even know who's going to get first pick, really.
It's unpredictable.
Exactly. Same with the NHL, Goose, but what do you have to say about the NHL and its draft lottery tanking?
I think it's a precedent for all other really leagues because they don't have tanking. The NHL really has no track record except for one, and that's not even proven, really. Mario Lemieux was the best player in his draft class in 1984, and the Penguins, whether they like to admit it or not, really tanked the season. And there's nothing honorable in tanking. I think it's disgusting, even though it may put teams in a better position. In the long term, there's really no honor in it. You go out there like the Sixers are now at 0-17, I think now.
Mm-hmm.
They lost last night. But there's no honor in that. It's not something that, as a sports athlete, that you should do, or as an owner that you should do.
Right. And now, Dimitri, unlike the NBA and the NHL, the NFL has no draft lottery. The worst team gets the first pick, and so on. So what do you think about tanking in the NFL?
You see, when you look at the NFL, I think personally that is the ultimate team sport. There's 53 men on the roster, plus you got 8 or 10 guys on the practice squad, and there's not really one guy that you'd really want to lose all your games for just to go get, because there's so rarely that one guy's going to change your whole franchise. I mean, given, Andrew Luck is a good example from recently. He was the guy to come get, and you wanted to get a good position to maybe draft him. And even the Colts, if Peyton Manning doesn't have 4 neck surgeries, he might not be on the Colts. Right. And that just unfortunately happened to the Colts. So, there's just so many guys in football on a team that really one guy to really kind of lose a whole season to try to get that guy is not gonna help you in the long run. I think when you look at football, if tanking shouldn't be in any sports, in my opinion. I think there's different ways to go about rebuilding, and I think tanking is just something that the fans don't deserve it. The league doesn't deserve it. They want to put out the best product, and I think if you're tanking, you're cheating yourself and you're cheating the fans and everyone who loves the league, because of all these leagues, a lot of people love these leagues all together, and just to cheat the fans and cheat everyone who loves these sports, I think is wrong.
Right, and it's the same way in Major League Baseball. And in the MLB, there's even less of a reason to tank. And I don't think it ever happens, really, because in baseball, it's the same way as the NFL. There's no lottery. The worst team gets the first draft pick, but there's 40 rounds in that draft. And 9 out of 10 times, the best players on all of the MLB teams weren't even first-round picks in the past. Now, there's a few, Strasburg, Mike Trout, Garrett Cole, et cetera, et cetera. But in the MLB, you draft these players, and they've got to come up through all types of farm systems. Some don't even make it to the big leagues. So there's really no reason to tank at all. I think it's safe to say that of all the sports, it happens the least in baseball. It may not happen in the NHL, may not happen in the NFL, but there's really no reason whatsoever for it to happen in baseball, in my opinion. But on to the next thing, guys. There's important positions on the field in every single sport. Some more important than others. Some more important in certain sports than certain positions in other sports. Goose, we'll start with you on this one. What is the most important position in hockey, and why do you think that position is the most important in all of sports?
Well, you can have, in hockey, you can have a great offense, you can have a great defense, but it comes down to goaltending. That's the most important position in hockey. You don't win Stanley Cups without great goaltending. It's the most important position in sports because without it, you don't win. Pittsburgh has a great offense, great defense, and they have a really good goaltender that won them a Stanley Cup. And you see it down the line. Great teams like New Jersey, Martin Brodeur for all those years. Detroit with Mike Vernon, Dominic Hasek, Chris Osgood. Dallas with Eddie Belfour. Those are great Hall of Fame goaltenders one day. And I don't see any other sport that has the most important, a position that's more important than goaltending in hockey. It's hands down the most important thing in sports. You have to have great goaltending. You have to stop the puck.
And if I'm not mistaken, didn't John Sebastian Giguère win the Stanley Cup MVP, I think back in, 2001 when the Ducks lost?
He won the Conn Smythe in 2003, but his team lost.
Yeah, see, so that just goes to show you, really.
So that doesn't get handed out very often to a losing team. It just goes to show how really important goaltending is.
And what about the NFL? I think we all know what position you're going to pick with this one.
It's pretty obvious, you look at the quarterback position, it's such a highly scrutinized position, and just in this day and age especially, if you don't have a great quarterback, you're not going to be successful no matter what it is. You have recent examples kind of in 2000 with the Baltimore Ravens with Trent Dilfer. You had Brad Johnson with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And there's a couple other guys that you really didn't have an elite top flight quarterback, and they still were able to win a championship. But most of the time, you see these guys win championships with great elite quarterbacks. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger's won, Eli Manning. These guys who have put their time in, and it's just the quarterback position to me. Either 1 week the media loves you and the fans love you, and the next week you go out and throw a couple interceptions, you're done. So it's just such a roller coaster through every season. Every play, every pass you throw is so scrutinized by the media, by the fans, by the experts, so-called. So quarterback position, I think, in all sports, I think every sport has their own position that's really crucial, but I think quarterback, it's just a position that there's no other position that lives up to that, what you have to be and how good you have to be, appreciated.
Right, and I think quarterback's becoming even more important now with all the pass interference penalties, fantasy football, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to pick a position like you guys picked. So you see, the goalie is really the only person on the ice who does what he does. The quarterback is the only person on the gridiron who does what he does. And the pitcher in baseball is the only person on the baseball diamond that does what he does. These pitchers pitch once every 5 days, or once a week for that matter, depending on if there's a break or not. These guys are that important because there are 162 games in a Major League Baseball season, and they may only appear in 40 of them. Now, these guys are the only people on the field who can determine whether or not the batter hits the ball over the fence. If a pitcher lets up a home run, you can't expect the left, center, or right fielder to rob it every time. So it's really not their fault, which is why I think the pitcher is responsible for pretty much the entire defense of a team, and defense, pitching, whatever you want to call it in baseball, is crucial. You saw it this year with the San Francisco Giants. Madison Bumgarner carried them through the playoffs. They won the World Series. They pretty much beat the Kansas City Royals because pitching held up their team. It's time and time again, year in and year out, you're not going to win a World Series without a great pitching staff. And like I said before, there's only one pitcher on the field at all times.
Yeah, going off what you guys said, it's kind of hard to say the same in basketball because, as the three positions you guys all stated, everyone in basketball doesn't have one strict thing they have to do. They have to do everything as a whole. So I think it's a little harder, but I would have to say the point guard position, mostly because the ball starts with them. They're the floor general. They bring the ball up and down the floor. They call the plays. They get the offense started and the offense finished. And you look at the way it's evolving with Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook, Derrick Rose, John Wall. These guys are all not like the old point guards you're seeing, like John Stockton and Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson was evolving the point guard, but now it's totally changed. It's totally different. And you're used to seeing facilitators more like Rajon Rondo, the Celtics, but now you're seeing guys who can drive the lane, dunk on big guys. They can shoot threes, hit floaters. The game's really changed, and I think the point guard position is evolving and making basketball a lot more entertaining to watch and going to be a better sport moving on.
Right, and you look at some of the teams that have those facilitating point guards like the Celtics and Rajon Rondo, the Timberwolves and Ricky Rubio. Those teams aren't doing as well. Yeah. So you see that the teams with the point guards who do it all are excelling in this league. With that being said, you don't have to pick a player here that plays that certain position, but guys, who do you think is the best player in your respective sport, and why do you think that player is the best in all of sports? We'll start with you, Dimitri.
Right now, I talked about quarterback being the most important position, and if I'm going with those guns, I would probably go Aaron Rodgers because I think he is the best quarterback. But overall, I think what J.J. Watt is doing, of course, it's kind of ridiculous. You look at the position that he plays in the 3-4 defensive end. You really never see 3-4 defensive ends. I'm not going to get into the X's and O's here, but you really don't see a lot of sacks being had by those guys. They're really kind of blue-collar workers are really freeing up the linebackers, but he is just taking over this league. He's catching touchdowns. He's forcing fumbles, sacking, fumble recoveries, interceptions. He lined up as a receiver on the goal line a few weeks ago against Cleveland and caught a fade pass and made it look like it was nothing to him. And he's 6'5", 6'6", about 290. He's a freak, and it's awesome to see. And he just got his big contract, and it seems like he's still really humbled. He's not really one of those guys who's really taking that for granted. He's really humble about what he's been able to accomplish, and he's just getting better and better. We still might not have seen the best of J.J. Watt. So I think J.J. Watt, hands down, is the best player in the NFL right now.
I can't disagree with that. I'm going to go with Mike Trout in Major League Baseball. And I'm going to say he's the best player in Major League Baseball and not give much light there. But I'll tell you why I think he's the best athlete in all of sports. And this is simply because Mike Trout could catch a pass from Aaron Rodgers, most likely. Mike Trout could ice skate, we can assume. Mike Trout could make a three-pointer, we can assume. But none of the players that you guys are going to pick, most likely, could hit a 100-mile-per-hour fastball. And even if they could hit a 100-mile-per-hour fastball, it's probably not going to go over the fence. With that being said, that goes for every single baseball player. And just because Mike Trout is the best one, that is why I simply think he's the best athlete in all the sports, because what he's able to do, no other athlete in any other sport can do that.
Yeah, going off what you just said, the player I'm going to pick was All-State in high school football. He had many D1 scholarship offers for football, but he chose to play basketball, and that was LeBron James, who out of 100 people, 99 would probably say he's the best player on the planet, and I agree with that. I feel like he's the best athlete on the planet because he can do so much more than other people, and I think he could go to the NFL right now and play. I think he's that good, but as you said, I doubt he could hit a 100-mile-per-hour fastball, or if he hit it, he's not going over the fence with it. So I feel like it struggles for him being the best. You could say he's the best athlete, but he's undoubtedly the best in his league. And I feel like LeBron James is a physical specimen more than almost any other person on this planet when it comes to the sport he plays.
Right, and LeBron James might not just be the best athlete on the field, he might also be the most coveted off the field, is why he gets so much attention elsewhere too. But Goose, what about the NHL? Who's the best player?
Quite simply, Sidney Crosby. I don't know if Sid can hit 100-mile-an-hour fastball, but I don't know if Mike Trout can stand in the way of a 100-mile-an-hour slap shot and get up and still skate.
That's a good point.
Granted, you have padding, but it breaks legs, and I've seen it happen. Zdeno Chara, 6'9", 105-mile-an-hour slap shot can break your leg. And hockey players in general, I think, are the toughest athletes in sports because they have to deal with that. Sidney Crosby is a great skater, which many NHL players would love to do, and the endurance level that Sid has. He's relatively healthy now. Of course, he had the concussion issues, but I think if you're an athlete, you need to be humble, and I think you won't see a more humble player in sports than Sidney Crosby. He doesn't crave the media attention. He signed in Pittsburgh, a relatively small market for the NHL. If you really want to get down to it, he signed for a hometown discount. Doesn't get paid $25 million. For what it's worth, no athlete's worth $25 million. No athlete's worth $15 million. But he makes $12 million now, but that was prior to the salary cap restraints that were put on this past year after this past lockout. If you're humble and you just handle yourself with class like Sidney Crosby does, he's the face of the league for a reason. He's the best player. He was the best player in his draft class. He's a franchise changer. You don't see many of those in hockey, and we have one coming down the way in Connor McDavid this year. But hands down to Sidney Crosby. He's best on offense. He's a great defensive player and willing to do whatever it takes for his teammates, which is fantastic in my opinion.
Yeah, Goose, you mentioned two things there that none of us mentioned, which is endurance and humbleness, if that's even a word. But all of our players that we mentioned have that, and I think that's what makes them elite athletes in each of their sports. Now, who's the best of all of them? That's always up for grabs any day of the week. Now, let's pretend we're 10 years from now. We all know which direction each sport's going in. You could see by numbers, ratings, money, this, that, and the other thing. But 10 years from now, let's see which sport we think or why we think our sport will be the most popular. And I'll start with this one. Personally, I believe baseball is going to have to do something about the amount of games that are played in that league, because nowadays what you have are sports that are very popular, like the NFL, because the season is shorter. Now, not lengthwise, meaning like from this month to that month, but 162 games is a lot to watch, a lot to keep up with. Same with 82 in the NHL and the NBA. Yeah. But unless you're a diehard fan, you're probably not going to sit down every single night and watch your favorite team take the field. I think in order for the MLB to be the most popular, they're going to have to start cutting down on some of the games, maybe turning their head on some of the guys who are taking steroids, because ever since the whole debacle, you've seen home runs drop a lot. I mean, from 98 to 2006, I think there were over 5,000 home runs every year in the MLB. Ever since, there's only been one season with 5,000 home runs. With that being said, though, there's a lot of great faces out there. You know, one great thing that the MLB is doing is the guys who just won the MVP are their good role models. You know, they're not getting in trouble. Mike Trout, Clayton Kershaw, you never see their names in the bad side of the media. A lot of the MLB's faces, other than the steroid era, are never in the media for the wrong reasons. And I think that's why 10 years from now, if the NFL, the NBA keep having players that are committing all these crimes, this, that, and the other, then they're going to start to dwindle, and the MLB and NHL are going to remain on top because their players are staying out of trouble. But Vaughn, what do you think about the NBA?
I think the NBA is on the up and coming just physically because the athletes are getting so much better. And one thing the NBA is really trying to do is bring the salary cap up. And when you're doing that, you're going to look at a lot more big threes formed. And say, for instance, you see Paul Gasol, Derrick Rose, and Carmelo Anthony come to town. You're going to want to watch that. That's going to be way more entertaining than any other sport because you're seeing three of the best players at the positions on the floor at the same time. As you can say with Kyrie Irving, LeBron, and Kevin Love right now. And that's basically why there's going to be so much more money coming into the NBA and going out because these athletes are getting paid so much more. You see LeBron's salary is $25 million a year, then add on his Nike contract and everything else. He brings in so much more money, and everyone wants to watch him because he's so surrounded by the media. And you see all the players like that, like him and Kobe Bryant and Kevin Durant, who are all good role models. They stay out of trouble, like you said, about players that won the MVP for your sport. So I feel like that's the only way the NBA gets better is because of who they're putting as the face of the NBA, as the role models, and all the money they're bringing in that people want to buy the jerseys, buy the shoes, and watch the games.
Right, and without any statistics at all, I think it's safe to say that social media has made the star that much more important. And in basketball, one player can really change an entire team, which is why the star in basketball is such a big deal, and social media is helping that a lot. Goose, what do you think about the NHL?
Well, for the first time ever, I'm going to use we. I work in hockey, and I'm going to speak not just for the NHL, but for hockey in general. I think we're on the right track. I think we're getting ratings. It's growing in popularity. Not having ESPN at the fingertips really hurts the NHL since that lockout in 04-05, which canceled the entire season. I'll be truthful, I don't know how popular it will get in America because it's football and really baseball. And I agree with your point. You said that the NHL is almost spotless when it comes to off-the-field issues. That one incident this past year really has changed some of that. And I think that's something that other sports are really envious of. They want to have those clean records, and unfortunately for them, it's just not happening right now. I think for the NHL to be successful, they have to really look at where they're putting teams. Florida's not really a team that's really working right now. They're not averaging a lot of people in the building. They're getting less than 10,000, which is horrendous. They have to smartly decide where they're going to expand, if they're going to. They need to figure out a way to maybe boost revenue through NBC. Obviously, that's where ESPN would help a great deal because of their mainstream success and how much they plug the NFL and LeBron James. That's basically all what you hear, right? It's the NFL, and LeBron James.
Yeah.
They just need, it's going in the right direction. They just need to really smartly decide what they're doing, keep what they're doing because it's working for right now, but if they can really maintain their growth right now, which is really good. They got good ratings because of New York and Los Angeles. We're in the Stanley Cup Finals. Those did wonderful ratings. They just need to keep doing what they're doing. I think they're on the right track. I really believe that.
Absolutely, and the NHL is a brutal sport. That's what Americans like to see nowadays, people roughing each other up, which is perfect for the NFL. And I think, as you mentioned, Goose, it's safe to say that the large media outlets are hyping up the NFL like no other. Whether it's right or not, we don't know. Dimitri, make your case for it, though.
When you look at the NFL, in 10 years, we might have a team in LA in the next couple of years. They're trying to get a team in London, which I don't necessarily agree with 100%. I think that's going to cause too many conflicts with traveling, whatever. But just the fact that, having another team back in LA for another huge market, you look at if they get a team in London that's just overseas and just expanded the interest, and they already have how many times have they had a game in London this year? I think it's like 4 or 5 of them, and they've been doing that for the past couple of years, and they will continue.
And there's always fans there.
Always fans. Wembley Stadium is always packed with NFL fans with all kinds of jerseys, not just the teams that are playing. You see all kinds of jerseys when they've had games in London. And I think it's safe to say I think all sports have their they have their demographics where they hit home with certain folks. But you look at the NFL, I think generally we'll all agree that in America that's the coup de grace. That is the home run, if you would for America. I think NFL, it's once a week, Sundays, or Monday or Thursday. I think I hope they used to have Saturday games. They still do a little bit. They have them a little bit this year. But I don't want them to get too cute and try to force NFL down our throats every once. It seems like they're almost on every week or every night. Excuse me. I think if they stick to the Sunday Monday, and you said about even NBA and NHL with 82, and then with the MLB with 162 games. I think all three could use a slight reduction in games because just because it is for hockey, it's not necessarily contact, it's a collision sport. Guys are colliding right into each other, they're fighting and all this. In the NBA, you talk about it's a long brutal season, days in and day out. You're traveling, and MLB, it's just especially with shoulders. How many young guys have the shoulder injuries or elbow issues?
Epidemic.
I think that's the crucial thing that I think the NFL has with all the sports. It's once or twice a week, and it's just there's not day in and day out. It's about a 4-month season, and then they have the long off season, and they come back, and the long off season helps it. It's because it's so much buildup. Because after the Super Bowl, you got kind of a layover period, then you got the kind of a combine and the draft and stuff, and then you get the free agency and all that kind of stuff. But the long break between the season and when it comes back, I think the hype of it all helps it out a lot. So I think 10 years down the road, I think you're still going to see NFL as long as the kids and the parents are still letting their kids play this game, because it is, let's be honest, it's a dangerous sport. All the sports have their own dangers, and injury concerns. But you look at the NFL, there's so many. It's such a collision sport, and so many things can happen. You just heard about Justin Hunter from the Titans, who ruptured his spleen or the laceration in his spleen. Or, it's just such crazy things. So I think as long as they keep they're all about the safety of the players, I think it'll still continue to be the popular sport in America.
Absolutely, and fantasy football is another thing. How hard is it for somebody to sit down once a week and change their fantasy football lineup? Where in all the other sports, there are fantasy teams, but you have to do it every single day. It makes it so much more difficult. And fantasy football makes fans feel as if they are on the field. Fantasy sports has
a lot to do with all the popularity of sports as well, because you kind of have an attachment to to the players and the league.
It makes you feel like you're almost a part of a team, an NFL team. But guys, I think it's safe to say that all 4 of these sports are second to none, at least as a group in this country, at least for now, and we can expect it to remain that way. For Dimitri George, Mike Gosnell, Vaughn Dalzell, I'm Kyle Kondor. And you're going to see me next after the commercial doing a Christmas edition of the 2-minute drill. We'll be right back.
We're Steelers fans. I'm a Steelers fan. And we're Steelers fans. We're good sports. I'm a good sport. I'm a good sport. We always have a designated driver.
Steelers fans.
Steelers fans don't let fans drive drunk.
Responsibility
has its rewards.
Responsibility has its rewards.
Go
Steelers!
Go Steelers! Go Steelers!
Go Steelers!
Welcome back to The Big Hit. Once again, I'm Kyle Kondor, and this is the 2-minute drill. And it's the last one of the semester, as your host Josh Hill already mentioned. So you know what that means. This is the last episode before Christmas. Cue the music. With that being said, I've got some presents to give out. And who's more deserving of presents than some loyal NBA fans? Or maybe not so loyal. Come on out here, Dakota. Our analyst, Dakota London here, is a Cleveland Cavaliers fan. So, let me reach in my sack. Dakota, here's a bandwagon for you, just in case LeBron James switches teams again. I've also got something for my good friend Dimitri. Dimitri is a 76ers fan. Now I feel bad for Dimitri, because he hasn't been able to enjoy one of these since April 12th. So, back to my sack. Here's a W for you, big guy. And Vaughn Dalzell, the Bulls fan. What do I have for you? Seems to have slipped out of my bag here. A handicap parking sticker. Make sure you give that to Derrick Rose. Merry Christmas, bud. Oh, and last but not least, a Lakers fan, Freddie Mitchell. And just so you know, Freddie, you are technically the least because the Lakers are in last place in the Western Conference. But anyway, here's your present. It's Shaq, because he's the only person Kobe ever passed the ball to. Merry Christmas. Man, don't you guys just love the Christmas season? Me too. Anyway, I gotta go buy some presents for NFL fans now. For producers Malusi Kitchen and myself, and director Michael Mattingly Martone, We are the Big Hit. And we'll see you after winter break. All right.